Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday live stream. As you can viewers, you can tell we've got a whole exciting new cast of characters on our stream today. We're so happy to have all of you guys here. We're going to do introductions really soon. I'm just going to run through our usual up top stuff. Regular viewers, thank you for being here. I hope you're as excited as we are to have all these guests today. A little bit about Valiant if you're new. We are a managed service provider in New York City, but we do have a national reach, so look us up. And if you want to learn more about us, please watch our previous episodes. We've got quite a rich library of content, I would say, at this point. A lot of it curated by Matt, but also other team members have also created a lot of great content. And check it out on our YouTube channel. You can join the conversation by commenting on YouTube or LinkedIn. And you can also watch our live stream via Twitter. Follow us at The Valiant Way. And we see you're watching and we get the DMs. We really, really appreciate it. And we will create streams that answer questions because we love interacting with our viewers and creating content that actually speaks to what they need and their questions. All right. So that's the usual business up top. To get started, George, why don't you kind of give an overview of what we're doing?
Sure.
We'll introduce our illustrious guests.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to let Matt do the introductions.
Right.
Because Matt is definitely the MC here underneath it all. He's kind of the ringmaster, but I was going to introduce the topic a little bit. Basically it kind of came out of a conversation we had about, what kind of streams, end of the year, kind of wrapping things up. And it was about this Gartner's 2022 strategic initiatives, what's happening to technology trends, and it kind of became a great conversation internally. And then I know Matt started talking to other folks. So there's a lot of there's a lot of buzzy words here. So we wanted to take the time to kind of break it down a little bit and what it means to both the end people consuming technology, using technology, and for our channel. There's been some great channel guests here. So with that, we thought we would put together a panel of folks from all different sides of the spectrum of the channel, and just kind of walk through it in a conversational way, because I think that's where you get the best results. The best conversations start out as these little things that start out a little bit, and then it goes kind of viral. So Matt, why don't you take us off with some introductions, as you know everyone really well, and then we'll dive into the topic.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for leaving out the part where I talked to myself for like an hour and a half on the topic before even bringing it to you guys. We'll start
we don't talk about your you got to go deep into things. So that's a private thing. So.
All right. So first we've got Drew, who is the owner of Polaris Technology. It's an MSP down in Florida. I've known Drew for several months now, and we try and chat, at least once a week. And it's speaking with him has been a really interesting experience, coming from someone who used to hire and fire and work with MSPs before working for one. Encountering a smaller MSP didn't make sense to me at first. Like, how do you do these things? How can you provide a really high level of support to your customers? And then I met Drew, and I've never thought it again. He in the best way shut me up with a couple of conversations, and it was like, okay, now this all makes sense to me. I love it. We've got Marnie Stockman, the CEO of Lifecycle Insights, a company that's dedicated to improving customer success within MSPs, and she comes from an educational background and is a recent author. So we're just gonna put the book up here, literally. The book on customer success for MSPs. Oh, look, there's a link to Amazon. That's amazing. I don't know it just happened. I didn't touch anything. My hands are up here. But and also the provider of beautiful hats. But Marnie's someone I've been speaking with for quite some time now, since Jonathan and Ray really kind of got me into the MSP community, and she's one of the homies, so she's here with us today. Colin Knox, he is the Canadian Avenger over here. He's currently got Captain America's shield on lease, which I think is fine because we know that he's off doing his own things these days. But Colin is the head of Gradient MSP, and it's an interesting company. It's one that took me a little time to really wrap my head around, because what he is doing is incredibly I think they're altruistic. It's being done to help everyone within the industry. It's something we talk about a lot. Having the right data helps us make the right decisions, but having the right data in the right form can be a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
His company's making that happen. He's doing a lot of great things with billing reconciliation, which at the end of the day is great for MSPs, and it's also great for customers because it brings another level of transparency around billing. So thank you for being here with us today, Colin.
And just I'm going to inject for 1 second. Anyone who has ever run a monthly bill on an MSP, I'm looking at all the MSP owners out there, the stress of it and the hard work of it. It's such a pain and so difficult. So it's awesome to see what's happening with that. Thank you.
It's a beautiful thing. And next we've got, who doesn't know Ray? Who doesn't know Ray? Come on. Ray is a DJ. He is a former MSP owner who currently owns a telecommunications company, OIT. He's quite frankly one of the nicest people in the channel. We've had a lot of really great conversation over the past year or so, and he's one of my guys. So, and Jonathan, he's a weird work husband kind of thing. It's a little weird, but Jonathan,
we'll talk about it today. Figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
we first met.
You can't put a label on it, Matt.
Everyone's shipping us. It's true.
First met in 2019, and actually tomorrow marks 1 year from the first time he pulled me into the community on a live chat. So
our anniversary. Oh my God, this is a special occasion for
it's
sure.
Amazing. Yeah. Jonathan works at Ninja One, which is a company that offers a lot of services or products around the proper management of MSPs, PSAs, and RMM software. And it's just a really great person working for a great company. And last but not least, we have Dan Comas, the owner of Tech Runner IT, an MSP located on Long Island. He's almost a stone's throw away from where I am. And we've been going back and forth for almost a year now too, and he's just part of that kind of group of people that I consider to be like almost my team of Avengers. I'm going to keep going back to the Marvel thing. I can't help it. But I guess what I'm saying is there are a lot of people here today. Everyone's coming from a different place, but we have a lot of similarities. And at the end, I think all of us just want to be able to either improve our MSPs, help other people improve their MSPs, and as a result, really bring technology that's scalable, secure, and stable to our customers. So with that, I'm going to pass it back off to you, George.
Awesome, thanks. So there was a word in the chat. That was a buzzword bingo, which I'm going to give Jonathan all that. And it's true, because a lot of buzzwords get kicked around in technology. One of our cardinal sins here at Valiant is using words that no one else knows, the shibboleth, if you will, of technology, where people say secret words to understand. Like I did it the other day to a client. I said QoS, and the person had this blank look on their face, and they looked like, and I was like, I just did it again. So we try really hard. So part of what we really want to do here is take some of these terms and these buzzwords and break them down to actual things that you can do and be actionable about, or apply it, or even just kind of put it into your mind. It's like, okay. So the first one I think that really got, and I actually had to look this up because I kind of was like confused when I saw it. I was like, data fabric. What the heck's a data fabric? And and I've been, as you probably can tell from the grayness, I've been doing this a long time, and it reminds me back in the old days of switching fabric. I don't know if you guys are out there who've been doing this a while. With the whole, That was a big deal. Like, we're putting this switching fabric in, and I was like, "Was it switching fabric? Is it just a new take on it?" But no. So really, kind of put it in some human translation. It's in a thing. It's a collection of services that work together. They give you good data. They kind of give you some idea of the high data hygiene, data usability. I kind of took it as a bit of like business intelligence, but maybe the next level of it. So I'm going to throw it out there to the group. What do you guys think about data fabric?
I'll get things going, because I always know that there's like that kind of strange moment of everyone being polite and not wanting to speak first. But at the end of the day,
you don't have that problem, Matt.
No, never. It very much, it very much feels like the breakdown of discrete silos of data for the sake of being able to have a mesh. When you think of mesh as a real, like a fabric, I'm wearing mesh today. It's multiple layers that interlock for some kind of benefit, and that's very much what's happening here. The ability to have data coming from discrete places and existing in a way that lets them validate each other, or even form a form of like almost a start of authority, not really trying to use DNS terms here, but a single source of truth where you can confidently make decisions that help you and your customers is a fantastic thing. We just don't need to call it data fabric.
Right.
I mean, that's my opinion. I think Colin's been smiling. This is a lot along the lines of what he's doing, and I'm just waiting to hear from him. So why don't you go
I'd love to get the take
I'll be
on
the
it.
interjecting Canadian. If you guys are all going to be polite today, then I won't for a change. We'll play opposites. It's
have fun with it. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I love the term data fabric. This is my life right now, because when you think about a fabric, it's everything interwoven, right? Like it's a bunch of threads that are interwoven to make something, and it serves a purpose. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of people who think buzzword and everything else. I think for me, more than it being a buzzword, it was more to define what's happening. And it speaks a lot to what we're doing at Gradient, where we're attaching a lot of things together and pulling data in from a bunch of different systems so that we can piece it all together and find out and dig in to find out what is real. And then have that single source of truth that can provide intelligence on a whole bunch of different levels across things. Now, I know I went through the article because I hadn't seen it, and then you shared the link and I went through it. And I think, yes, if you look at the surface of can an SMB leverage a data fabric in their business today, I think siloed as a single SMB, not really. Right? We have business intelligence systems, whether you're using something from Microsoft, whether you're using an industry-specific tool or dashboard or whatever, that's there, and you can only pull so much, and it's a finite amount of data. So this is why we're doing what we're doing at Gradient, is we're trying to break out of that silo of any individual business and consolidate and amalgamate across an entire industry. Mm-hmm. So if you look at what we're doing from an MSP's perspective, any individual MSP can't make a decision based off of their own data alone, but they could make some really awesome decisions and come up with some ideas based off of everybody's data together of what's happening in the industry, what's happening with other people. And then that extends so much further than just the MSP into the SMBs, right? We can start to tell how technology is being consumed globally by SMBs, what's working, what's not, backing up MSPs who are taking things to market to say, look, this is what the industry is doing. I'm not hopping some snake oil thing to you to try and just get some more revenue. It helps everybody do better, whether it's the people creating the technology and understanding how people are consuming and working with and bundling and selling their products. And it helps you guys and how you're going to market with those products. And then it goes and helps the SMBs to decide what's missing for themselves and what they need to be doing in their business. So I see it as it's a really long bed sheet that just covers the whole market and lets people know it's not just one tiny little thing where your spouse rolls over and you lose your part, but it's one of these things that can just provide so much value to the industry, but it's also a scary thing because people are really conservative and hold close to their chest their own data and information about themselves. Right. So it takes a lot of trust and participation and cooperation to be able to make this an effective mechanism.
Right. And also it might bring up some data privacy issues and data anonymization and how do you actually utilize it and format it in a way that other people can utilize it fully. Gleaning that data, gleaning useful insight out of it. I think that's a really trick of it. So I feel a lot better now. I get
and that's why we've got the shield on loan. Like that keeps the data private and protected, guys.
There you go. But the beautiful thing is right now. Sorry, one sec. Colin just cut through the cynicism of it being a buzzword. That's what that was. That was beautiful. Sorry, Ray. Go ahead.
No, I mean that's the kind of the thing that like it makes me laugh because when we talk about like data fabric, data convergence, synergy, cohesion, unification, like this is not new. Having all our disparate systems, bring all the data together so we can see it under one house, under one single pane of glass. How many times have we heard vendors say single pane of glass, single pane of glass? It's just data fabric is the 2022 buzzword, right?
Right. But it doesn't include the word synergy, which you said in the land of buzzwords, right? But the other piece is like a single strand of anything. I did knit Matt's hat, right? A single strand of yarn I can break apart, but now that I've turned it into fabric, you can't break that apart, right? So like, that's the power of it being fabric and woven together. Is it's so much stronger, which is the definition of synergy. But I just have PTSD from overuse of that word.
And I think what the benefit is now is, 2015 to 2019, 2020, we were realizing we want our data, get all of our data into this single house, right? The single data warehouse where we could see everything together. And that was fantastic. And that's absolutely a goal that we should all work for. Now, the whole data fabric idea is not have everything in one place, have everything everywhere, right? Whether I'm working in this system, I can see all the data. I'm working in this system, I can see all the data. It's making it available where I want it to be. And that's so much more powerful because now we're not saying you have to do things this way. It's saying wherever you're going to be at, we can make the data work for you. Right. And I think that's the real power to this.
And I think in a lot of that as well, you're looking at deduplication of data because the whole history of it has been, okay, instead of interfacing with this data dictionary or this data lake over here, we're going to take it and we're just going to pull that in. And suddenly you have two sets of data that may change. They may get unlinked somehow. Even if you have all the right automations in place, you may not get the right data updated in both places, and then you have a disconnect. Right. So deduplication is what one of the notes I wrote there on that, because it happens. You have using one of Colin's words, a lot of dirty data.
You're cutting out noise.
Yeah.
But that's also why it's so important to have that single source of truth, right? If you look at how, and I get that there's kind of end client and SMBs watching the stream right now, but if you look at how a lot of the MSP stack tools integrate with each other, it's a complete, it's a complete mesh. Actually, I just realized the pun in that one, but we'll give that a second. But it's a mesh. So what's the problem with that is that any one source can have a wrong bit of data that's feeding to a different one. And now you have this hodgepodge of what is real, what can I trust, where can I go? Right. And it almost needs to be more spoke. I get the ideal of, everything can pass any which way. But if you've got this spoke where you've got the hub that's the source of truth that's feeding all of that data, yes, if something goes wrong there, it's feeding wrong data everywhere. But you have a better chance of standardization and accuracy coming from one major hub. So that, to Ray's point, doesn't matter what system you're looking in or where you're going or how you want to interact with the data, it's the same data. Right. It doesn't matter who departmentally in your business is working on something in whichever tool they're doing, they have the right contact address for that client, whether it's a technician looking in the ticketing system and going off to help service them, whether it's, an accounting person that's looking to follow up on an unpaid invoice or whoever it is, it's all the same data. Right.
And I think from the small business space, to kind of shrink down the idea of data fabric to, your Office 365 or your Google Workspace or whatever, your central source of truth there. I think you wind up seeing a lot of issues with even something as simple as that, small business, 10 people, 20 people, whatever it is. You don't conceptualize the fact that, okay, I'm using my iPhone. I'm going to open my reminders. Oh, let me enter my reminders. Here we go. I go on my desktop. Wait, my reminders aren't here. Right.
Yeah.
No connection that, I actually set those reminders in my iCloud account, not my 365 account. All of a sudden you start, you have a disparity right out of the gate with something that's so simple. But it just goes to show how you kind of need to keep it between the rails, right? Or keep it between the dishes in order to keep everybody on track. You can get off course very quickly.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, this thing about any business, I mean, I always find that a disparity between like what gets delivered from a service perspective against the financials, like the billing. That's where I mean, just as a business owner, that is probably singularly one of the largest stress points for us as a business and also for our customers, because they don't, how many, I mean, I look at all the owners out here or people, how many times have you had a customer call you like, is that bill accurate? Is this really what it costs? Or this is what it is? But they don't trust it because they have no visibility into it and they have no way of knowing what it can be. And they just have they just go, is someone jerking me around?
How many of you have sent out an invoice being like, I hope that's right? Right? You don't know. Between service delivery and account management and accounting and everything else, what was sold, what was deployed, what was used, what was charged, everything else is in complete disconnect.
And what's worse than that is, when you send out the invoice and then you finally do that audit and you realize I just spent 6 months underbilling that client by what may be dollars, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars. That position that you're in on, what do I do now? Do I have the uncomfortable conversation with the client? Do I eat it? That's rough.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to tell you guys. Sorry, George. Did mean to cut you off. We're moving along today, and this is great. I'm enjoying the discussion, but we're already 20 minutes in. We're only on the first bullet.
I know.
You're right. I'm wondering. Well, it's been so interesting to listen to you all think about this, and I think the next one, actually, the next bullet point is it's kind of the same thing we've been talking about from a security angle, right?
But also, just note that a number of us have referred to data fabric as mesh.
Yeah, I noticed that.
That's a problem with buzzwords, is that they're too easily interchangeable, especially when you don't have a clear understanding of what they mean. So I think that we just demonstrated something that kills me about buzzwords.
Boo.
You're done.
Come on.
You're done.
Oh, wait. Hold on a second. Hold on. Simon's going to love this. Goodbye.
Oh, it's come 360. Oh no.
Brother now.
So yeah, the next of the 6 that we want to talk about was security mesh.
Yeah.
And George, you want to kind of get started on that?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say this one buzzed me out real hard when I first saw it. I was like, this is like straight up the full, like, you know, we've been talking about layered security approaches and the onion and the castle, all this stuff for as long as I've been doing this. I think you've been talking about this since the 50s. So it hasn't really changed all that much. Some of the stuff that comes, you know, when I read it, I was like, you know, it's like best of breed. And, you know, and Matt and I were kind of talking earlier. I don't always love when people use best of breed. I think it kind of like has this idea that it's like the potential of something as the best. But sometimes when you look at it, it's not necessarily what gets delivered in any way, shape, or form. It becomes this like hot mess of like things we could have done, but we weren't able to do because it was unmanageable and too difficult. And I think cybersecurity in general falls to like too difficult, too hard, too inconvenient. So cybersecurity mesh, and basically, you know, the idea behind this is that he's meshing together best of breed solutions. Okay. What does that even mean?
I don't think that's really the greatest. I'm sorry, Drew, you go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think cybersecurity mesh is just kind of the evolution of what we've already been talking about previously, which was security in layers.
Right.
With the exception of now those layers are talking to each other. They're more interwoven.
They're more flexible.
You're not just getting an alert from Huntress, from Sophos, from whatever insert blank vendor here that's monitoring those things. They're actually interacting with each other. They have some way to do something else together, to fix that. And this is probably of the buzzwords and everything I saw, this was probably only one of the ones that really kind of jumped out at me as a I like the idea of it, the concept of it. I was like, I'm gonna steal this one.
I think it's a concept that plays out into the real world in a nice way. This is going to be a little weird, but I was doing laundry the other day, and I've got these new laundry bags. And
are they mesh?
Not only are they mesh, but they've got a hexagon design, very much like Valiant's marketing. It's strangely on brand. I couldn't help it. But you know, the way the mesh was constructed and the shapes used allowed the laundry bag to really conform to the contents and protect them, you know, and put a really tight perimeter around them. There wasn't all these gaps because it was this rigid structure. And I think that's what makes the term mesh really make sense here. It's going to work with your technology. It's going to protect it in a way that's going to be a little bit closer. I also think that the idea of being able to have things that are best of breed, who cares about that term, but appropriate for your business, that you can select to work with other components in this mesh is really what's exciting to me. And I see that is something that cybersecurity companies are doing. It was actually mentioned on the Gradient event. What was that? Early last week?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
2 weeks. And that's, to me, the most exciting part of it, because any kind of collection of services that can form a system that has the ability to allow you to hot swap services that are a part of it to be the most appropriate level of protection for your business is exciting to me.
Well, and if we want to add another buzzword to it all, it almost has to be a self-healing mesh too, right? If something goes offline, everything else has to fold back into place and kind of cover off for that, so that you don't have an exposure or vulnerable, right? But you know what? I'd say I agree with it all. It's one of those things where, on a couple things. One thing, I think best of breed is the most important part of that, because there's been a long issue in the space that we live in, where there's enterprise solutions,
Right.
and then there's MSP fit solutions that make sense for them to deploy to their clients because it integrates and meshes with their stack and their solutions to be able to deliver and administer those solutions properly. Right? When we start getting to a world where there's a true mesh, not even just cybersecurity, but across anything, that's when we can see a lot of benefit, where anything can plug in. And this almost goes back to that fabric, right? If anything can plug into a single place and be interchanged as needed because something's no longer as reliable, or there's some other affinity to, because of an acquisition or whatever else happens, being able to interchange those and swap them around to be the best fit and solution and total solution for the SMB.
And to us, we see those characteristics in a vendor as like requirements at this point.
Yeah.
Any degree of vendor lock into a product is, you're on the naughty list like right away. You need to be able to stay flexible and make changes at a moment's notice, and your partners need to be adapting to the environment that we're all in.
I'm sorry. I was saying that's sort of where I'm being cynical, but just seeing it for years of like people saying that they're interchangeable. There's always different parts we can do, all these different things, and able to kind of swap out. But people don't follow any kind of standards for doing that. So I think that's where the kind of the failure happens, is that people are not following kind of best practices. I was going to call out Tim here, about APIs, and that's 100% right. People aren't following API standards, best practices around that, securing those APIs, which is a huge problem that's going to happen in the next year or so.
Yeah.
So that's where that's maybe, and I said, I think the layered approach is 100% where we should go towards. But if it's not modular, then it's just going to be the same thing we've been dealing with for years. So that's kind of my. I'm a little more cynical than I should be. I apologize.
Look, we've been doing IT in New York City for 20 years. We should just hate all this stuff. It's natural. But that's
the expectation, right? Like that's, I toward the latter years of my MSP, I was having difficulty with my RMM, and I won't call anybody out, but I was having challenges where, every time we had to upgrade a user license or upgrade a seat count or whatever, it was, okay, well, here's another 355-year agreement. And it got really frustrating. I said, okay, well, I tasked my team and I said, okay, guys, we're going to change all of our scripts to be pure PowerShell. So regardless of what RMM we chose in the future, we could just move it off. Minor tweaks here and there to move, but I was not going to be locked in. Absolutely vendor agnostic. Yep. And I think MSPs are realizing that that's a bare necessity at this point.
So this is what we're trying to help with again. And I hate plugging ourselves all the time, but it comes down to, you guys have a ton of lock-in as MSPs. Right? As more vendor consolidation happens, which is good and bad, but there's more closing off of ecosystems. So it's harder and harder to do that. You look at some of our friends in this industry, like Calvin, what a community contributor this guy is, and the scripts that he creates and everything he does. But then every other question comes flying to him. Can you make that work with Autotask? Can you make that work with Manage? Can you make that work with this RMM or that RMM? We're trying to stitch together all the APIs into a single place where it doesn't matter how you're running a script or a workflow or anything else. It's that spoke that can connect into everything and allow that to interchange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
You mean Kevin, right?
So I've got something to throw at you guys. So, I mean, we're talking about modular things, API connections, that having flexibility. Meanwhile, there's an 800-pound gorilla, more than 800 pounds. There's Microsoft, right? And particularly when I'm thinking about security, I just see more and more of what they're doing is providing more holistic solutions where they're really pushing this idea of, hey, you can have everything within this ecosystem. It's all talking to each other. And it's a pretty compelling case too. So I guess I'm kind of interested in your guys' thoughts about balancing this about, okay, you're getting some of these benefits here, but you're also locking yourself into a system potentially. I'm just curious for you guys' thoughts about it.
But is it best of breed? That's going to be my statement every single time. Yes, there's a lot of benefit in interwoven things from a single vendor or single company, and Microsoft's on a completely different scale, right? Yeah. But when you start to get downstream of that, how likely is it that every single one of those companies has the best of breed backup solution and recovery and SaaS solution and protection and security. There's no way everybody can be the best at everything.
Correct.
Right. And that's where that best of breed comes from. It's nice for the convenience and everything else, but everybody, as any modern day consumer deserves, is the freedom of choice. And so that's, what I think is most important of that. And that freedom of choice is ultimately what's going to deliver the best and most appropriate solution for anybody. Should we get that?
OIT, how can I help you? No.
All right, so let's make your way to the third item here. This is going so well. There's so many good opinions being brought forward. This is one that bothers me because I think that a lot of people like to talk about privacy but don't really do much about it. It's the buzzword that never really gets followed on, and the particular one we're talking about is privacy enhancing computation. I have some notes here from the Forbes post that got me going. Why is privacy still why is privacy still like a great bar party conversation? Because too many business models work only when there's no privacy. Worse, how many Americans really worry about digital privacy? Now, personally, privacy is incredibly important to me, and I make efforts with regards to the marketing work that we do to maintain it. And if you've ever had a conversation with me around anonymity, I'll scare you. It's a bit much. But I think there's a lot of validity to this, that there's a lot of talk about it and not a ton of action that goes on. Before anything, I just do want to share this link to an article from Kelvin on PowerShell. That thank you, Ray, for sharing this.
That's a great
if you want to get him out here, absolutely. But going back to the privacy enhancing computation, that to me just is pure buzzword, and it's
three buzzwords, and when you string them together like that, everyone says, like, I know all of those words one at a time, but when you string them together like that, it takes it way out of the lay people's level of comfort. Like, what is that supposed to mean, strung together?
Well, it's like you read the thing and it's like watching an episode of Ancient Aliens. It's just I'm not saying it's privacy, but it's privacy. But it's a serious topic. Privacy is incredibly important, and especially as technologies become more integrated, I think that more efforts do need to be taken to make sure that privacy is properly maintained, and that there's a certain level of transparency around how the privacy is being maintained. Marnie can tell me a secret, and I can be like, I won't tell anyone. Well, there's no guarantee I'm not going to, right? I mean, it's as simple as that if you put it in kind of like meat space. But when it gets to technology, it's very much the same thing. And, I've seen probably over the past 6 months, a number of MSPs really kind of starting to get more into privacy and speaking with their customers on the importance and including it into things like security best practices training, because I think it's a great place to have some awareness around privacy, because it starts making it obvious as to what you stand to lose should your privacy be breached in one form or another.
Actually, sorry, go ahead, Colin.
I'm just going to say, so we just went through all of the SOC 2 Type 2 stuff, and one of those trust service criteria is privacy and stuff like that. So one thing that we were taught and over is there's this very vast difference between security and privacy, right? Those are not the same. They are not interchangeable. And that's a problem that myself included for the longest time was always like, oh, privacy just means I got to keep it secure, right? No.
Yeah.
It's holding something confidential. It's making sure that doesn't, get shared elsewhere or even internally to people who shouldn't have it.
Right.
And that's what's critically important, right? Is how you can come across standardization or even privacy standards. And that's becoming more and more mainstream now, that you're seeing smaller and smaller organizations going with SOC 2 and ISO 27001, and there's some other privacy specific designations that are starting to come. That's going to become a worldwide standard pretty soon, that you can't be in the business of holding anybody's data in any form without complying with those or risking really stiff penalties. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to.
I tell you, it makes a lot more sense when you replace the word privacy with trust.
Well, I think part of it too, and the biggest thing is like, what is being collected and what are you doing with it is like the basis of is there a legal reason to collect this? Is there a purpose of why you're doing it? Why are you keeping it for the length of time you're keeping it? And I think a lot of folks don't answer that question. Is if you start asking it, even here in New York State, there was a law change where you have to notify your staff if you're monitoring them. which is the first time that's the first state that's doing that. That's a big change.
Yeah.
In the past, people was kind of assumed you were doing that, but now we're notifying folks that, hey, actually, we are monitoring. We can monitor you, and we'll do it at will. And that's not a violation of privacy because they know about it, but it's what do you do with that data collected? I think it's such a nuanced topic that, and once again, it gets used as a top level, like privacy. I think privacy, security, compliance, and compliance is another one.
But I think there's a little contradiction in that, though, right? Because I think there's there's these counter, there's these two actions that are 2 points of view that are completely counter to each other, right? Because we have the PIPEDA, we have GDPR, we have, CISO, we have all this stuff going on where we talk about data privacy and, you have to keep everything in house and you can't share with anybody and what can you do and the right to erase and all that stuff, right to be forgotten. But then you have the other people on the other side of the spectrum saying, well, there is no privacy. I walk out, I'm hit with 20 cameras every single day. My license plate is read 100 times a day. My cell phone tracks every moment I do TikTok, asks me my birthday every 13 seconds so I can see the chicken wing dance. Like, so I wonder if, I'm all for privacy, absolutely, but I hear it all the time also of, are we tilting at windmills, right? How much action is really being done? What can we really accomplish? And I realize holding the corporations accountable to it, and absolutely we will fight the good fight every chance we get to hold users' data sacred and confidential. But at the same time, there are so many sources of data. You know what I mean? So it seems to me they're counteracting each other.
It's an
they're
conflict, I think, man. Right? Like, on one hand, we're fighting this, saying, I don't want you to have all my data. On the other hand, we're begging for it. Look at the personalization we want across everything.
Yeah.
We want the mall where you walk into the mall and you only hear your type of music playing and you walk into the store and they're like, hey, Ray, this is what you're looking for. It cuts the crap and gets rid of everything else so that you've got this personalized experience to you. But in order to do that, they need information about you.
And look at this conversation we just started with. We went from data mesh, right? Data fabric and synergy and convergence where we get all the data everywhere. And nobody has said only our data. We have said all the different data sources everywhere. But then we're talking about privacy in the exact same conversation, which is the opposite of the data mesh. So,
and I think part of it is that is people look at it and they're like, yeah, I want all my data private. I don't want anybody to know anything about me, but let me go use this free application. No hits to anyone in the room.
And if it's free, you're the
product.
That was Colin's battle. That was the first thing I said to Colin. Which he let me host their AMA last week or the week before. And I applaud him for that transparency. But that was the number one comment I got back. What is Gradient doing? If it's free, I'm the product, because we've heard that a million times. And people are scared of free, but they will sign up for it all the time. I mean,
sure. I mean, it just comes down to the current status of, and maybe it's the New York cynic in me. Ultimately, people don't care enough to put in the work or to pay to keep it private, right? True. If Instagram was $5 a month, what do you think would happen to their user base? Twitter just put out something, right? It's like $3 a month for some other status. I can't wait to hear how successful that is for them.
Well, yeah, I mean, take it to another level. And speaking of not willing to pay for this, ransomware. So a big shift in ransomware with more people having backup. Criminals, and this isn't entirely new either, speaking of trends that aren't exactly new, but switching to data exfiltration. And so there's all these leak sites. All the major ransomware operators have leak sites now where they'll start posting things. And yeah, sure, there'll be like a news article if it's a big company that's hit, and there'll be some data that gets out there. But there's stats that show payments have not gone up because of this. Like, this isn't a convincing tactic, because in the end, we're just so as the consumer, the customers of these giant companies, we see data breaches all the time, and we're kind of like desensitized to it, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. And these corporations look at it and they're like, yeah, we get bad PR for a day or two, and then it kind of goes away, and so we're not going to pay that. So, yeah, I mean, I think there is something there with the challenge of wanting to care. I mean, now we move over into compliance and regulations and standards, and that's a different thing because you have to, right, because of fines. But
I think you're right, though. There's a hypersensitivity to it. Right? What you really care about, what doesn't get out and what doesn't get shared versus everything else, right? Do you really care if the world knows what your favorite breakfast cereal is? No. Do you care if they know how much money you have in the bank and what your social security is? Yes, absolutely,
yeah.
right? So there's different types of data, and that's where you can connect what I or any company knows about you as an individual or as an individual entity compared and in contrast to what that data fabric says. What are the similarities and what are the anomalies, and how can you weave and put that between each other to make, better decisions or get a more personalized experience that you didn't even know you liked stuff. I go on Netflix now. I'm like, hey, I've never even heard of that title. How did you know I'd like that? Because you look at people similar to me and you know enough about me that if they like that, I would. And that's where that stuff comes in, right? And I think there is that hypersensitivity right now.
Well, there's hypersensitivity, and there's also, well, first of all, I wanted to just thank you, Colin, for your transparency, particularly with the AMA that Ray ran a couple of weeks ago.
Terrifying.
And you're right. There is a difference between the information you're not concerned about people knowing and the stuff that you hold a little bit closer to you. Like your openness on barbecue sauce versus sweet and sour was just eye-opening.
Let's not talk about marshmallows, though. We already had that one.
All right, so let's does anyone else have anything else to say on privacy, or would you like to move on to cloud native platforms?
Well, I see a comment.
There is
I see a comment from Matt Connolly in the chat.
Right.
Yeah.
Here we go. Let's get that. Sorry about that.
So what's the thoughts on leveraging blockchain to protect user data, but these get more personalized experiences? I think there's like 9 buzzwords in there too. So.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, seriously.
I actually don't personally have too many opinions or thoughts on blockchain that I would share today, but having seen this, I think it's time to get a couple of friends who are actually experts in the industry in here later this month to have a conversation.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's a great topic.
Yeah. So I'm going to defer, unless you guys have something.
Yeah, I was going to say the only comment I had on that, and the only notes I wrote was regarding legislation, and legislation, especially here in the States, is damn near impossible to get passed, get done, and get maintained. You look at CMMC, which has been the biggest piece of probably cybersecurity legislation passed, or any type of cyber legislation passed in the past probably 5 or 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
And it was never fully implemented before the next version was released. So everybody was rushing. We got to get CMMC. We got to get CMMC. We got to get CMMC. Oh, by the way, we're suspending it. You just need to follow NIST 800-171. Oh, by the way, we're going to implement it by here. But oh, by the way, now there's 2.0 that's completely different. Well, not completely, but mostly different. There's a lot of, it's less than what it was. And we're going to implement it by this date. And everybody turned around and was like, you didn't get 1.0 done. Why are we bothering with 2?
I think I'll just.
Same thing Jonathan said about desensitizing to you, right? When that just all becomes a blur, and everyone's like, "Yeah, that's not going to happen either." I'm just going to ride this one out till the next one comes along.
We'll just wait for CMMC Service Pack 6 to come out.
I'm going to agree 1,000% with Alex's comment right there. We'll throw that one up there, Matt.
Yep.
That is 1,000% what's going to happen.
It's a protective
That's what we're
measure.
seeing already.
It's already happening. Right?
It's already happening.
It's happened. Yeah. It's just now it's catching up as the renewals happen in the next 12 to 24 months.
Yep.
So
absolutely. Speaking of things that are already underway or already happening, cloud native platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was an interesting buzzword because it's something that actually is happening right now. I mean, we have someone here with us whose company just released a brand new platform that is cloud native. That being Jonathan, and with the new Ninja One platform. And I mean, I've been on and off software development since I was like 13 or 14, getting in and out of it. And, the last kind of wave that I picked up on with a lot of work being done in containers and everything really being built for cloud environments was incredibly exciting to me. And it's something that I don't have too much time to dedicate to these days, but as soon as I can, I mean, George is going to be he's going to be up to his eyeballs and just ideas and crazy stuff.
But shush moment.
But I love the idea of cloud native platforms becoming a term because it really helps people further embrace the cloud, particularly within an SMB. And it's something that's already being used a lot. I guess O365 would you guys consider that to be cloud native? I mean, it was essentially rewritten for the cloud. Yeah. I mean, you can't take a desktop application and really port it over as much as they've done. And they've definitely put a lot of work on top of it. But I do see it as being something that's a buzzword. It's going to they're going to be platforms that SMBs are actually going to be able to take advantage of. A lot of them are doing it right now, and there's going to be more. I think that we're going to start seeing more and more tools that we use that are going to become a lot less reliant on locally hosted resources.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a couple of tools that we use right now that I think we'll see move into the cloud in the next 12 to 24 months. And to me, that's exciting. It's like, is this the future? Well, it's already here, but you know, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm sure Drew and Dan just working with direct customer support work, we see the big change. You know, we haven't installed the application on premise in years.
Very few.
At this point, and we're pushing everyone to get off of it. You know, it's interesting to see some of the legacy apps for some of your more oddball customers. We have we have some interesting customers where it's like a bakery, and even they're moving to like a full cloud native bakery management solution, which you wouldn't think exists, but people like baked goods.
They got data fabrics, flour silos.
Yes,
you know, it's just...
but it's you know, I think this is already long underway. It's just a matter of putting the label on it.
I think as we've spoken with new prospects, almost actually 100% of them this year, the conversation is, we have this thing, we just want to go cloud though. We don't want this anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's just the greatest door that opens because we want to do the same thing. Right. You know, it's a great starting point, you know, on the buzzword digital transformation journey for that client at that time. So yeah, heavily underway. And once these small businesses are getting to a point where they're ready to accept some sort of major change, be it they're moving or they're reorganizing the company or the acquisition, whatever it is, that tends to fall right in line. Like, okay, let's do it. Let's get rid of this stuff and let's just live
full steam ahead. Yeah,
I think Office 365 or I'm sorry, Microsoft 365. Let's keep up with the name changes.
It'll change in a week. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, that's Google Suite, Google Apps, Google Workplace, whatever. You know, it is as cloud native as it's become. It's just adapted from SharePoint, Exchange. You know, and it's just been relabeled. You know, now you have OneDrive, and it was SharePoint lists. Now it's Microsoft 365 lists, and then it was, you know, Exchange, and now I guess it's still Exchange because you go to AWS. But it's all technologies that we were doing before that have just been kind of
evolved to a new environment.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, that's kind of the arguments I have with. When people look at, you know, Google Workplace versus Microsoft 365, and I'm like, you're looking at an enterprise technology adapted for the cloud that was already an enterprise technology, and you have a consumer technology that was converted to an enterprise technology, but was still cloud first. Yeah, go check Yammer.
Yeah, Yammer out.
Give me a Delve presentation on it.
I think you're bang on, right? Like this is absolutely underway. And when you look at things, the reason that it's been held back is the incumbent major tech organizations who get disrupted by true cloud native applications, right? Cloud native is no longer, I just installed the server-side application and you're term serving in or Citrixing in or whatever else, right? And using an application gateway for all these other terms, right? This is actually full server-side processing and browser processing. This is web experience. This is an application built without a client-server, you know, connection mentality.
Right.
And that's what it is. Microsoft themselves was holding back that transformation and that adoption of cloud native. Even look at what the first hosted Exchange was, just Exchange hosted on a server that was made public with multi-tenancy, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't cloud native.
When you get down to that, go even back a little further, because that's just an ASP business model at that point, right?
Exactly what it is. And so now that they've done that transformation, let's all jump on, and you're seeing it again downstream. The companies
this is
like
where I'll get on my
Ninja
soapbox.
The other ones.
This drives me nuts. This absolutely drives me bonkers because, you know, I've been saying for years to MSPs, and I did this in my own MSP, when you're evaluating vendors, I put a high weight on vendors that are cloud native, not took a server like we're talking about, took Exchange, put it on a colo somewhere or Rackspace or whatever you're doing. I'm talking about true cloud native, using microservices, leveraging their APIs, have publicized APIs with good documentation, using current gen purpose-built, right?
Thank you.
Because if they're not doing this, you're going to run into, and again, I'm not going to name names, but you're going to run into, at some point, they're going to have legacy infrastructure where they cannot bring in new features, or they're going to do it at a slower pace, or they're going to have security concerns because they have all this ancient code. right? And we've seen some of those vendors in the space. So why put yourself in that position now? Yeah, the product may be good now, but 10 years down the line, what's the longevity if you know for a fact they're going to have to carry over code anyway? And yes, Amazon, or AWS East 1 is going to go down every once in a while. As Jason Slagle said, friends don't let friends put their stuff on AWS East 1. But, it's part of life, and Office 359 will go out every once in a while, yes, but the benefits outweigh the on-prem so much better.
Absolutely.
You know what?
So if you're an MSP, don't do it.
I'm glad you're here to say all this stuff, Ray. That if I came off saying it, we have some direct competitors that this storyline's a little too close. But what putting it back on a SMB's perspective, and in this entire exercise, right? What I really loved about Matt, like you pitching this exercise, is that you looked at that article that's on Forbes reacting to these trends, and it was so cynical and just kind of like dismissive, like, yeah, we've heard this before. What's new? Blah, blah, blah. And I loved, Colin, your approach of taking more of like an optimistic, positive look at it. And I think we can do that here too. And with Ninja for a long time has been able to say, we're cloud native, and that was an advantage. But I think now looking around the vendor space and seeing more and more people finally getting to the point where they have been dealing with their legacy stuff, to me, that's exciting, because even though from a strictly competitive standpoint, maybe it's not the best thing, ultimately, I think it's good for everyone, because it feels like we're getting to that point where it just takes so much work to make this transition, right? If you've been around in business for decades and you have all this legacy code, and now it feels like we're getting to the point where people can kind of finally get past that. And once we get over this hurdle, we'll be able to accelerate and innovate more across the board. So for SMBs, I'm excited.
Speaking
I
of
feel bad because I'm sorry, Matt. I just saw Alex's comment about a service being down. And I always feel bad as a vendor. I'm told that I'm supposed to be Switzerland. I'm not supposed to talk about other vendors, but I hold myself accountable, and stuff is going to happen. It happens to all of us.
Everything breaks.
The whole
Everything
neutrality
breaks.
thing is BS. We're humans. We're going to have opinions. We're going to have bias. We're going to deal with it.
It's not like MSPs aren't supposed to have BDR, and backup disaster recovery systems in place. So if all of your information is in one store, one data silo, whatever you want to call it, that's on you. You know what I mean?
The initial team behind that product was incredible. I don't know what happened.
All right.
I heard the brains went elsewhere.
So let's continue moving on, because it's actually almost 11 o'clock already. This has gone by incredibly fast. Distributed enterprises was one that was interesting to me. I mean, when I first started my career, I went from managing a network here in New York City to one that had like 16 locations around the country, and everything was internetworked. We were using like Intertel switches for voice, and it was super, super sweet in like 2005. It was like kind of pride and joy. And then I saw this term distributed enterprises, and I just started scratching my head because there's not really a whole lot new to it. But having said that, George and I talked a little bit. He got really, really kind of like psyched about some items, and then Ray, this is literally in a large way, I think it's your bread and butter, because it's unified communications is such a large part of it. And I know that we have a whole panel here today, but I'd really love to hear what Ray has to say on this subject, especially with some of the new tools that have come out lately. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it. What is the new mobile-based system?
Oh, Mobile X. Yeah, we have a cell phone service now. Truly, everybody talks unified communications, which generally just means contact center or call center. No, this is actually cell phone is part of your actual thing, which none of our competitors have, which yay us. But that's the only pitch I'll do right now. But yeah, breaking news in 2022, people are going to want to work from anywhere. Wow, who knew? And it makes me laugh because, like, I remember when like HP 17, whatever, Packard Bell, when HP was doing this or Texas Instruments, when HP was doing this, early 2010s, where they had work from home people, and Marissa Meyer comes in and she says no and brings everybody back to the office and the revolt. And then hearing the stuff now where people want to be distributed, but and now the people that are being forced back into the office are saying, I'm going to leave, I'm going to go elsewhere. I'm like, we did this, right? We've been there, done that. Yeah. But being able to plan, and that's where I think MSPs are kind of like the unsung heroes of the 2020, 2021, 2022 new norm, right? Where, this whole thing of we've been touting you can work from anywhere, and MSPs turned it into we did work from anywhere, which I think is phenomenal. And I'll take my hat off to all the MSPs that made that happen, because it was no small feat. So it was awesome.
Look around the 9 of us. I think Dan is the only person that looks like he's physically in an office building somewhere. I mean, we're all, Ray, I've seen your stormtrooper for the past 2 years. It's
and I have to call out this Swarovski Darth Vader that was given to me by a good friend, Dennis Zarovetsky over at Adept Cloud. This is Swarovski crystal into a Darth Vader. It is terrifying and amazing. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that is the bougie side of the Force right there. All right, now
I'm just gonna. This is my 2 cents on this one. Just real quick, was what I found. This is the biggest thing, was that so much of what changed was that people who never were allowing or had the mindset of allowing remote work or from anywhere were forced to it, and now they're now as managers being forced to allow their staff to do this. I mean, as Ray said, it happened in 2010 in enterprise, but SMB, many SMBs, and I know Dan and Drew probably heard me, many SMBs are a bit of a cult of personalities / dictator kind of ownership level. Mm-hmm. So, people are like, I gotta hug my employees. And now it's changed because the employees are just not going to come anymore. Mm-hmm. So,
but we had this conversation a decade ago with paperless, right? We have to have physical files, and we have to have, that only one person to be working on that account. My family, for those that don't know, we've had a real estate company for 50 years. Almost 50 years, since 75. And that battle of we have to get away from paper files because only one person can work a file at a time we manage foreclosures, so it's literally hundreds of files at a time. And we went from a warehouse, and it's funny because I still have the warehouse today. I pay for office space, we just don't use it. But we emptied a warehouse of bankers boxes now to a couple DVDs, and now everything's online. And it was we can't possibly do that we did it and it works. And work from home or work from anywhere is the exact same thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, medical imaging is a huge example of that. You had to keep your files for 7 years. So any medical imaging company had warehouses of just X-rays and printed MRIs and stuff like that. And especially even once you went digital, because storage in, circa 2003, 2007 was so expensive. Right. Compared to what it is today. And a single, a single scan, a single MRI scan is huge. It's massive. But you still had to keep that information. So they had to keep it somewhere. Now it's just, okay, we'll stick it out in our data fabric.
Back around.
By the cybersecurity mesh.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and when you look at file sizes like that, that's really hard to encrypt cleanly. Right? Yeah. Like we've seen Silicon Valley, right? Like Inside Out, we know now, but no.
Middle out.
But it's one of those things that adds to the difficulty in protecting some of that data and holding some of that stuff private. And now all of a sudden you have these secure warehouses of data that can't be let out, but still has to be held and all of that stuff, right? But it's a difficult conundrum for sure.
All right, folks, we are here. We've made it to the final boss of the live stream. Total experience. I think this is something that's been an aspiration forever. Everyone's tried to improve their almost holistic experience for their customers. And I think it's something that personally I've seen happening more and more within the MSP community over the past couple of years between companies that we work with and folks like Marnie at Lifecycle Insights. So Marnie, this is your time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the term, how you feel about it, and where you think, not even where you think things are going, but
term
where
of her is the final boss or the other term?
So I do have tons of opinions, as you well know. I wrote a whole book on it to talk about it, right? So I think when I think of total experience, everybody kind of needs to approach their businesses with the end goal in mind. So there's two different things. And I don't like to term just customer experience, because customer experience really claims like how the interaction feels. I think about customer success as the broader term. So maybe that's what total experience means. But when I talk about customer success, I mean it is two things: customer experience, what it feels like to work with you, plus a focus on the customer outcomes. And that's where you mentioned earlier this phrase, it's like the weather. Everybody's talking about it. Nobody's doing anything about it. So I think for a few, you've been hearing now in this space, like, what's the customer experience? You see on websites, there's no nerd speak. We don't speak geek, right? We talk human to our clients. We have a portal. You can jump in and do everything here. So that's one part of it. That's what the experience of the work looks like. But you have to address their outcomes. And for managed service providers, you must have that strategic view and conversation with your partner to be that, everyone hates the other buzzword, strategic advisor or trusted advisor, but to be that, George is like, yes, I do hate that phrase. But if you want to have that conversation, you have to talk business about their business.
Yeah.
And service providers support those small businesses through technology, and that's the total experience in my mind.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to a lot of Kelvin. One of the things he talks about with his businesses is not SLAs but SLXs. So service level experiences, service level
service level arguments.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not about we're going to get to this ticket it's going to be done in 4 days. If it doesn't need to be done in 4 days, maybe for whatever reason, but it's about the experience that the customer gets.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's kind of the unicorn of us all.
So I'd say our experience here at Valiant is in the thing that is like, if you had to hit the contract or the SLA, you failed, because because no one want if and that's for us. I mean, it exists. The SLA is there because it gives us guidelines and role. But man, we really don't want. If I had to truck that thing out, I'm already in a really bad. I'm not back.
Yeah. I think of it a little bit of a different perspective. So we've already covered that majority of us are in our homes right now doing this business phone call and working from homes, and the lines between home life and personal life and business life has completely blurred and blended now. And so when I think about total experience, you look at people's descriptions on their Twitter accounts or whatever, right? I'm a son, husband, father, CEO, this and that. How does that blend in the total experience in my life as a consumer across anything personally or business-wise that relates to me in who I am? Right. And how does every interaction I have, whether internally as an employee, externally as a customer, a consumer, a participant, a volunteer, whatever it is, how does that blend? And like that article talks, so like Google has blended some of that between work and home, right? You can have your email merged now in an experience like that. So how do you make that blend happen, and how do you participate or affect and impact one part of that total experience for them?
It's with work from home, especially, I think it became a lot of, you're not just supporting one network, now you're supporting 38. I had at least 6 people who came in and said, well, why can't I connect to the network from home? Okay, well, what's your home Wi-Fi? I don't know the password, or I don't have internet at home.
Right.
So our expectations have now become, getting everything together, getting everything to work, getting everything to...
Getting everything together, but also being completely understood by your provider. I mean, that was a big part of things for me. I mean, I was a Valiant customer in 2011, when I was running an IT department at a place. And the reason that I'm sitting here today is because the experience was so positive from the very beginning to, the end of that engagement, to the point where we kept in touch over the course of 5 years before I walked in the office as an employee. And a lot of that was the experience. It was sitting down, explaining, or not even explaining. I don't need anyone to talk at me, but sit down and say, these are the problems I'm having. How can you help? And then really kind of look at them and really go into it. Don't hand me a brochure. Don't tell me about your service menu. Tell me about what you have that's going to bring a benefit to me. And then you follow through on that after I sign on that agreement. If you can do that, you're beginning to have a total experience.
Yeah.
And that's I feel like I'm kissing ass today. This is not right. I just
don't worry, Matt. You'll have a couple minutes later to make me remind me of.
You'll make up for it.
I never worry about that. So.
But
let's wrap back around to the data fabric, because to Colin's point, all the stuff here to
it meshes the
profile, right, is what you want to incorporate. So you take the pieces of the data fabric that work for the experience, for the outcome you're aiming for.
It's interestingly enough, that actually does roll into next week's topic, which, am I echoing?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, this mic has been acting up, whatever. Someone else talk.
Okay.
Now this follows right into next week, where Matt's going to talk about whatever George is about to say.
Exactly. So next week we have a really kind of exciting episode, a little bit different. This is a great, huge panel discussion. Next week we're a little bit talking about why we got into IT, why we got into this computing.
It's about the attributes of ourselves from the experiences that we've had over the years that have brought us to where we are today. And I think that sometimes talking a little bit about that and explaining, I don't really like to use the word too often for this, but like the passion behind working with technology and what that brings to a customer is a very big deal. And it's a large part of the experience I had when I first met the folks at Valiant.
Right.
So that's going to be next week. And I didn't want to preview because we're going to finish this up, but I just felt like that it just kind of went right into what Colin and Marnie were talking about. It's a collection of those experiences, and that's really what can make a difference around a total experience for a customer. So it's really, guys, I can't believe it. It's after 11 o'clock already.
Yeah.
Probably demolishing some of your calendars.
You guys are staying on with us.
I know.
Yeah.
Really
Time flew. Yeah.
This was such a fantastic talk to have. And, the beauty of it is that it wasn't focused on any one technology. It wasn't pushing something. What's next? It's just, what do you guys think is going on? What do you expect? How do you feel about this post? Maybe we could do something like this again. Maybe we can get someone from Gartner to join us.
Yeah.
Or even maybe I'll reach out to the writer of the original Forbes article. Because at the end of the day, he got me really fired up. And he's like the kind of person you could totally have a great conversation with. You can tell as you look him up. Yeah. But I think that, let's just talk a little bit about today's takeaway. George, please, I'd love to get you to start because that's your thing.
I'm going to follow the optimism of the group here. I was more cynical when I started an hour and 6 minutes ago. I feel a little less cynical about it, looking at it from a little bit of a fresh perspective. And I think which is really important in this field, because if you're really cynical, if you're truly cynical, you really can't do the work. Because
hey, look,
everything is going to be better.
No one wants to work with Nick Burns, IT guy, period.
Yeah. Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, Nick Burns was based on someone I worked with, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, beyond that, I think, I said this was great, is having such a great, unique perspectives and everything in a way that I wouldn't have anticipated before we started. So it's been really cool. So that's it. I don't know what else, Matt.
If
I think we're at 93 buzzwords. Not that I've been counting. So.
Ray, I think you might have been counting.
I think if we hit 100, Marnie's going to knit everyone else a hat.
Come on, knitting.
I would love that. It's such a good hat.
Right?
I'm very jealous of it.
I can't wait for LCI knit hats. I'm totally down for that.
But the logo, but the logo will be so little.
Oh, come on, the little logo. Oh, you can't even.
Other side there.
There
we go.
That's
so nice.
Subtle is better, I think.
The original MSP Geek hat that I got, and then the one they gave me at IT Nation. So
the one with the small logo looks like the freeware version. You got to pay for the upgrade.
Yeah. I didn't realize that. Gavin told me, or Kyle told me it was a subscription service. It was $9.99 a month, and then I could get the bigger logo. So
just good, better, best kind of a system on that. So yeah, does anyone else have anything else they'd like to say before we call it a day?
I think we're good.
I'm going to do a quick little closing ceremony to bookend the stream. Again, this was so wonderful. Even just sort of be a fly on the wall and listen to all these honestly great minds talk about these topics. It was really wonderful. And viewers, if you enjoyed today's stream, please hit the thumbs up button. And if you have any questions or would like to see us dive into more topics, if you want to see us do a deeper dive with one of our panelists today, please let us know. We got to build stuff for the new year anyway, so we would love to get your feedback. Not that we're trying to outsource our work, but we do. We appreciate it.
We do have quite a few things coming up next
Yeah.
year that's exciting, including a stream where we're going to have our friend Tim Golden on with us for Compliance 101. That'll be in early January. But yeah, just again, a real big thank you to everyone that joined us today. We had a ton of fun doing this. I honestly, after today, could see myself putting together a little bit better structure over our normal live stream and doing something like this quarterly. Yeah. I think it could be a lot of fun, have some rotating folks. So with that said, I think I'd like to wish everyone a great rest of their week. For those of you in cold climates, stay warm. For those of you in warm climates, go get yourself some ice cream and stop complaining about it. And have a good one, folks.
All right. Happy holidays,
All right,
everyone.
cheers, everybody.
Thanks for having us on.
Take care.